בכי נפשי אס השם.
Page 71 in Tractate Shabbat, it's not only a continuation of our previous discussion, it's zooming with one agenda, which is the Hebrew word yedi'ah, meaning how much is the person awareness of his action. An example, if a person did something that is wrong, now I want you guys to think in our simple language, in lawyer's mindset, okay? Which is, if you have a criminal act of someone that is a constant act of the same action, or how much the person who created some type of crime, he is responsible in a sense of fully acknowledging of his actions. Why I'm using this current term, because there are many circumstantial evidence that it's not just an act or an action. There is many times it's what is derivative indirectly in the mindset of the one who committed that type of crime, or in our language, sin. There are some situations that the person did something and it wasn't in his intent. Let's go to the extremes. We all know the difference between murder or manslaughter, as far as the crime and as far as the punishment by law, federal law, civil law. No comparison, but just to get to the mindset. When someone committed something intentionally, or if you put someone under the category of shogeg, of unintentional act, the big question is how much his knowledge involved, and what exactly you call him a person who did something unintentional, or you put him under the category that it's only in a way partially unintentional, it's not fully. Even we want to go deeper in a sense. Imagine if a person stand before the Lord, before God, and is no any excuses. They show him, they rewind the tape and show him exactly his actions. He needs now to give a clear explanation to the court what exactly involved. So in that sense, we need to make it clear as far as we are here discussing a theoretical statement, and we said many times in our practical law, those who practice law know that many times all the backgrounds that is very, very abstractive and theoretical is building the mindset in order to understand the concept of the law. Here is a good example that the whole idea of Shabbat, we want to know what exactly in a person's mind, involved in his mind. Later, the GEMARA give us an example, and again, I'm using that example just to get to the mindset. It is forbidden to have a physical relation with shifcha nechrefet. This is the next page, which is a maid, etc. Now, if someone committed something like that, but it was 5 different times, 5 different actions, the question is his knowledge of the second time is equal to the first time, and the 5th time the same as the first time? You follow me? So in that sense, back to Shabbat, you remember several days ago we categorized 2 different things. One is called shogeg, and the other is called ones. So let's simplify it. If we talk about tinok shenishba, everyone remember tinok shenishba? It's like a baby that was captured by the enemies. So is under the category of ones. He did something that it was forced to. The other category, it's called shogeg, which means he knew that, for example, it's Shabbat, but he wasn't aware that this work is forbidden. Or he knew that this type of work is forbidden, but he doesn't know that it's Shabbat, etc. So we use 2 different type of melachot so far. One it's called ktsira, and the other one it's called tchina. So now we zoom into our subject. Abaye amar tchina nami goreret tchina shem tchina achat hi. Now Abaye disagree with what we said previously. and he hold that grinding also draws the letter grinding with it, which means the designation of grinding is one, which means we speak about an atonement. And we said atonement from one act of grinding, atonement is attained for the second act of grinding as well, which means as to perform if it was a lapse of awareness, and he became aware only after the acts that were completed. So now we ask a question, is any different between the second and the first? Soon you see, because it was in a subsequent. So they said, however, they ask a question, Umi itlei lerava grira, since Rava and Abaye, they always dispute. So we said, and according to the Rava, the GEMARA said, and is Rava of the opinion that atonement can be attained by means of drawing? Veha itmar. Now we bring another source, which is, now we is speaking about achilat chelev. Now, let me give some background. We are here speaking about kashrut for a second, which is, when it's come to a certain food, especially animal, there is a very strong prohibition in the Torah that is called fat, eating chelev. It's like the fat part of the animal. In that manner, we are forbidden to eat or drink the blood from the animal, and we are forbidden to eat the fat of the animals. You can go further with that mindset and saying that that God asks us in a state of need to use only a certain species under the harmless of pain, etc., holy kashrut, but one of them is chelev. Now, chelev meaning fat. So I'm using the word chelev just because it's easy when I use the GEMARA, but remind, again, the definition is fat. Torah forbade it. Now the GEMARA asks, itmar achal shnei zeitei chelev be'elem echad. There is a definition of kezait, which means the olive bulk. That's the minimum amount in order to be in a violation. So if someone ate 2 pieces of chelev in one time, v'noda lo al achat me'em, and now he became Baal Tshuva, or someone told him about it and he cared enough, and he realized that what he did wrong, and again that's applied to what? Only to the first one. He doesn't realize over the second one. V'chazar ve'achal kezait, now is the third one, be'elemo shel sheni, before he knew that the second one was not right. So again, the first and the third wasn't at the same time, and he heard of the first one before he ate the third one. Clear? Amar Rava. Now again, don't think in a small mind just over this situation. Use that terminology in order to sharpen your brain, because we're going to juxtapose that to many other halachot, especially the halachot in our discussion, which is Hilchot Shabbat, and later we learn other halachot from that as well, such as in the fast day on Yom Kippur, there is a certain amount of kezait, etc., if a person eats, etc. So we're just getting the foundation. Amar Rava, hevi korban al rishon, if someone bring an offering for violation of eating the kezait, the olive bulk, the first one, rishon vesheni mitkaprim. Since he ate the 2 pieces of kezait, of the olive bark, be'elem echad, in one shot, so even he's aware now only of the first one, but because he bringing the korban, the offering for the first one, and he ate, the acting of eating was for both, so it's fine, it's combined both. Shlishi eino mitkaper. However, the third kezai that he ate, that it's not part of this atonement, which means you cannot say that because he ate the second with the third, so now it's all wrapped up together. No, it's separate. Another thing, hevi korban al shlishi. Now if he brings sacrificial offering for eating the kezait of the third one, and how do you know it? Because part of bringing korban, the person places his hand and make a declaration, said clearly what it's all about. Or even bring the korban to Beit HaMikdash, you need to say why is it. So he said, at the time that he put the korban, the offering, he said clearly, this is for the third kezayit.
Right.
So now they said, shlishi v'sheni mitkaprin, rishon eno mitkaper. So the second and the third is an atonement. The first is not. Which means the second will not take grira, will carry the first one together. You know, we just talked long ago about transferring mortgage, which is buying mortgage and transferring from one customer to another, and how the banks create troubles. Not to compare, but just to get in the mindset, it's not transferable, which means you cannot say that the second will take the first together with it. Hevi korban ala emtzai. Now look, here's the sharp part. If he brings the offering for the middle one, in that sense is the second, what happened now? Nitkapru kulam, which is everyone is together. And you don't need the din of grira, that it's carried from one another. Why? Because he ate the first and the third behelem echad in one time, so it's considering as one. Abaye Amar, Abaye hold little differently, and he said, Afilu evi korban al echad mehem. He says no. Even he brings a sacrificial offering for one of them, not necessarily the middle one, any one of them. He brought a sacrificial offering, which is, for example, he brought an offering for the first, or he brought the offering for the third. Nitkapru kulam. It's all of them wrap up with this korban. Why? Abaye hold that you can carry the mortgage from one to another. That you can carry, I'm joking, you can carry this type of grira, the eating, from one to another, which means when he put a korban for the kezayit of the first one, so the kapara, the atonements, it's also with the second one that he ate in helem echad, in one time. And the second is carried together with the third one that was together. So if he tied from the third one, it's covered the second one. And the second one, it's covered the first one. You know, it's like the pyramids in a business, you know. The second, the third, it's carried the first one, right? The one. So you see, anyway, from the word of Rava, that he is not holding the law of grira that they carries, and it's contradicted what Rava said earlier, because earlier said it's fine, he can wrap up all together. So how come Rava said something that is opposite than what he said earlier? So the Gemara responded and said, Batar deshama ma'abaye svara. That's, if it was a politics, it was a perfect answer. Which means, after he heard this from Abaye, so now what he heard that Abaye said that what? That if you bring in one offering, it's wrap up the atonements for everyone, because Abaye hold that you have the grira that you can carry. So Rava, back off, right? And he agreed with Abaye with this din of grira that you can carry. And therefore he said the same din that he said earlier, that the grinding together with the reaping together, it's all wrap up, that it's all part of the general atonement. I see that some of you are a little disturbed with the noise of the children. I must tell you as a side note that these children outside is a blessing. And to have here in our city a Jewish day school with many children running around and making noise, it's a blessing, so it's worth it. Anyway, if that's the din that Rava hold the same as Abaye, that they hold that they have the din of grira, tchina namei tigrar litchina, which means the grinding that followed the other grinding, so it can be atoned with this korban, with this offering that you bring for the second grinding, which means even the second grinding, it's part of the atonements wrap up together, since they're all made in one time, So it's fine. Ritva is not so happy with that, but we go by the simple Rashi. So the Gemara said, Grira itlei, Grira de Grira leitlei, which means, in our simple language, I just try to simplify it as much as I can. You can carry the mortgage one time, but you cannot carry from the carry of the carries. You got it? In other words, if, let's say, Joe, he has a mortgage, okay? And Abe come in, and he buys, what he buys, he basically bought his mortgage. You can say that he bought a property, but many times you're buying the note, you're buying the mortgage. So now basically you say that one time the bank, let's say Wells Fargo, allow Abe, or in a sense allow Joe to carry the mortgage to Abe. For example, can be even usually when they allow, if it's the same term and conditions. Sometimes if the economy is not so good, but as long as the person willing to pay in the same term and condition even less money, or different term and conditions, but more money or less money, so the bank allowed to carry the mortgage, sometimes. But if they're allowed to carry the mortgage, in that sense, they allow it only one time. Because if tomorrow you have another guy, Benjamin, you come in, and Benjamin said, okay, now I want to buy the mortgage from Abe, who bought it 60 days earlier. Did you ever heard such a thing? The banks come in and said, excuse me, I already allow one time to carry the mortgage. Either you give me cash, or I'm not allowed to transfer mortgage again. Possible? So in that sense, that's what the GEMARA responds. It says that Rava hold that if you want to carry this type of thing, you can carry grinding from one another one time. But if the first grinding atoned together with the original one, so from that koach grira, from that original part, because remember, the offering is not come in from the first grinding and not from the first gripping. Why? The korban come only for what? For the when a person did this type of ksira the second time, and the fact that he did the techina earlier is nigrar, it's carry with the first one, that it's all part of the kapara. So therefore he cannot carry one after the others, because he doesn't hold that you can have grira two times, one carry the others. It's not going to fly this way. So what we understand so far from the word of Abaye and Rava, we understand that when it's Shabbat and someone made him, he wasn't aware that it's Shabbat, but he was aware that it's a work. He understands that this type of work, and vice versa. When he knew that it's Shabbat, but it wasn't aware that this type of work are forbidden, it's all wrapped up. As long as he's not aware, he doesn't have the essence of knowledge. We said it's considering as one thing. So if he did that type of work and he didn't wear what he did, so for example, now we realize that today is Shabbat, but he doesn't know that this type of work is forbidden. So if he bring an offering, sin offering for one of these things, the second one is already atoned for that one. So now we're bringing other sources just to back up this idea. They said, Milta defshita lu le'Abaye ve'Rava miba'aya le'Rabbi Zeira. It's obvious, according to Abaye and Rava, that hold that if you do something intentional on Shabbat, and in other words, you know that it's Shabbat, but you're not aware that this type of work are forbidden, which is very, by the way, common in our generation, unfortunately. That people know that it's a Sabbath, or it's a Shabbos, or it's Shabbat, but not aware, that carrying iPad is forbidden, right? Or using the camera is forbidden, or texting is forbidden, right? So, and also the opposite, Zadon Melachot, that they knew about the certain prohibition, but they're not aware that it's Shabbat. It's all wrapped up as one halama. It's one thing. The Baye Rabbi Zeira mi Rabbi Ami v'amar leBaye Amina, Rabbi Yirmi Rabbi Zeira, Katzar v'tachan. חצי גרוגרת, קצר וטחן חצי גרוגרת, which means he now in the situation that he grinded, if one reap and ground grain in a measure of half of dry fig block, right? And his action was unwitting with regard to Shabbat and intentional with regard to prohibited labor. So what's the halacha? Ma'u she'istarfu. Meanwhile, he heard that it's a sin, he made a mistake. Do you say that the shtei ktsirot, at both time of grinding, shtei tchinot, they go together and he bring a chatat or not? It's considering one thing or not? Amar lei, so he said to him, wait a second, he said, chalukin lechataot velo mitztarfin. Which means, he said that they are separated with regard to bringing a sin offering, which means if one reaped and ground the minimum measure that determines liability. So he is liable to bring 2 sin offerings. And he said, and therefore they do not join together to constitute a minimum measure. Because you cannot have it together, the measure, it's chatzi shi'ur. In each one of them, and you don't have that measurement at this point. You have to remember, I just want to elaborate on that for a second, because the subject of Chatzi Shi'ur reappear in the Shas many times. I just want to sharpen for a second to make sure that we are all at the same page. In the last parak of the Tractate Yoma, the Mishna and later the GEMARA explain to us, if someone is in Yom Kippur and suddenly he needs to eat and he ate, and he's not terminally ill, etc., but he ate. Now, even he did it intentionally. You have, which called the minimum measurement, that it's considering something that is in violation. So there is a long discussion, what exactly is Chatzi Shi'ur? Rashi said over there, klomar pachot mikeshiur in Yoma, which means chatzi in that sense is not necessarily a half. It's less than the shiur, less than the minimum measure. But the thing is, over there, if, for example, you ate 3 different types, you ate a date, and you ate, let's trace a little tiny part of biscuit. I'm just give you an example. You combine 2 or 3 things. So you said that since all them together pass the number of the minimum measurement,
right.
Or you said no. See, you have to go by the specific item, and only if that item exceeded the shi'ur, the measurement, then is in violation. Clear? So in that sense, here's the same thing. And furthermore, they said, v'chol heicha dechalukin lechataot. So any time, whenever they are separated with regard to sin offering, v'lo mitztarfei, they do not join together. Ve'atnan, they said, wait a second. Now again, let's be together and make sure that we understand. I'm digressing just to understand the point. Yom Kippur, someone ate, he passed bar mitzvah, okay? And he ate a half of the date, small date, and a 1/3 of olive, small tiny one, and a little tiny biscuit. So here what you're doing, if you wrap all of them together, it's shiur, whatever it is, kazayit, for the sake of understanding. Now, if you take each of them for their own species,
right,
it's not enough. So here we ask the same manner. If someone ate chelev, fat, and he ate another chelev together, each of them was very small. But if one ate one piece of forbidden fat, and then ate another piece of forbidden fat, each larger than the measure of for liability, so what is said, Eino chayav ela achat. he is liable only to bring one sin offering. אכל חלב ודם ונותר ופיגול באלם אחד, חייב על כל אחד ואחד. Now, the Torah forbade many things. So if he ate forbidden fat, and then he ate blood, which hard for me to believe, but maybe people can do that, all right? And he ate notar that it's a sacrifice that remain after the time that when they may be eaten has expired, but he ate it. So again, he's in violation. And pigul, it's again that somewhat the notar and pigul is very similar. The idea is that it's result of attending a priest having an intention to eat a sacrifice after the proper time of performing his offering. So in other words, it was a time measurement and it's exceeded, and now he ate it. So that were unvalidated to the inappropriate intent of being offered, for example, right? But this fellow ate all these different things that is in the prohibition in one time, in one lapse of awareness. So what's the answer? Do we say that we need to bring one sin offering or separate for each? So the GEMARA said, Chayav al kol achad ve'echad. He's liable to bring a sin offering for each and everyone. And they go further to say, Zo chomer beminin harbe mimin echad. That is the structure that applies to many types of prohibition relative to one, which means she'im achal chatzi kezai, that if one ate half an olive bark, vechazar ve'achal chatzi kezait mimin echad, and then ate another half of an olive bark from one type, chayav, he is liable, because the two half measures join to constitute a single measure. Mishnei minim, if he ate from two halves of an olive bark from two types, patur, he is exempt. Now, we go deeper with that. Vehaveinat ba. As we discuss in the Mishnah, we learn mimin echad. So if he ate from one type, tzricha lemeimar, so it's necessary to say, says that it's obvious. Why? Because if you tell me if it's a combination, so one of them, it's obvious, you derive it simply. Ramar Resh Lakish mishum bartutni, Resh Lakish said the name of that sage, bartutni, hacha b'mayaskinan. And why we need to be so specific with what we are dealing here is kegon she'achalo bishnei tamchuyin, where he ate the two halves of an olive bark from two dishes where each half was prepared separately. Rabbi Yoshua, and this is according to the opinion of Rabbi Yoshua, the Amar, who said, Tamchuyin mechalkin, the dishes separate, which means one who eats two olive barks of prohibited food that was prepared in two different dishes in the course of one lapse of awareness is liable to bring a sin offering for each one. Mao de Teima. Last you said, Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben lekula ben lechumra. Rabbi Yoshua stated his opinion that dishes separate both as leniency and as a stricture, and therefore one who ate two half of an olive bark from two dishes will be exempt. So the Kamash Melan, so the Mishnah teaches us, Delekula lo kamar, that Rabbi Yoshua did not state his opinion as a leniency. Lechumra kamar, he stated his opinion as a stricture. So it's only lechumra. Vehahacha. And here, when we separate with regard to the number of the offering, the chalukin lekataot, v'kam mitztarfei, and you said that they are all joined together. Amar lei mar areisha matne la v'kashya lei, anan aseifa matnitin lei. He says the Reish Lakish response with regard to the first clause of the Mishnah, and he taught Reish Lakish said that I'm going just for the first clause of the Mishnah, not the second one, not the last one. Velo kashilan. So it looks like a contradiction. He says no. Mishnei minim patu tzarich alemeimar, that if he ate from two types, it's necessary to say that he is exempt. Why? He says, Ve'amar Reish Lakish mishum bar tutni. The reason for that is le'olam mimin echad. Actually, it is preferring even in a case where the prohibition was from one type of food. Ve'amai karu le'mishne minim. So why are you using the two different one? She'achalo b'shnei tamchuyin. He ate it in two separate dishes. Rabbi Yoshua, and let's go by the Rabbi Yoshua that said that dishes separated, the Amar Tamchuim Mechalkin, Ve'akamash Malan, the Rabbi Yoshua ben Lekula ben Lechurma. And we learn from that Rabbi Yoshua said no opinion of dishes separate both as a leniency and as Lechumra, as a stricture. So now the Gemara asks, the Seifa min echad u'shnei tamchuim, from the fact that the letter clause is referring to one type of food, and the case where the two half of the olive bark were prepared for two dishes. So now we're going to the 71b. Michlal dereisha min echai echad v'tamchui echad min echai v'tamchud echad tzricha lemeima. So if they have the measure of half bark and half bark, so a dish, it was necessary to say that he is liable. He said that now in between eating of 2.5 olive bark, he gets the awareness. He's now aware of that. So after eating the first half olive bark, he became aware that he had eaten food that was prohibited. So then he became unaware again of the second of the half bark. So again, although with regard to sacrifices, awareness usually serves as a line of the, between, nice line between shogeg or not shogeg, right? So the Mishnah here is go by the opinion of Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel de Amar en yedi'ah lechatzi shi'ur, which means since one is not liable of bringing sacrifice for a half of the measure, so since it's not the consumption of the 2.5 of the olive bark is not significant, and it's not clear between the 2.5 measures with regard to bringing a sin offering, so cannot yedi'ah, as we said at the very beginning, is awareness. Chatzi shiur, it's a half, it's like less than shiur. So the big question is that the Torah prohibition prohibited any amount of the item, which is only, and it's only liability that requires the definition of legal permanence, or that the prohibition itself apply only of the requisite measure, which is anything that less than a measure permitted by Torah law, prohibited only by the rabbinic decree. So now we're going to elaborate on that. Itma. Achal shnei zeitei chelev behe'elem echad v'noda lo al harishon. One who ate 2 olive bark of prohibited fat in a lapse of awareness, and he became aware of the transgression of eating the first one, and then became aware of the second one. וחזר ונודע לו השני. רבי יוחנן אמר חייב 2, וריש לקיש אמר אינו חייב על 1. Rabbi Yochanan said since it was 2 separate, you need to bring 2, Rish Lakish said 1. Rabbi Yochanan אמר חייב על חטאתו והביא. Rabbi Yochanan bring a source that said the reason it's because the Torah said על חטאתו והביא, which means the Torah said, and he shall bring for his sin, and he shall bring an ox. So it said, that's the source, that the indication is liable to bring a separate sacrifice for each one, each sin. Rish Lakish Amar Patur, he said it is exempt. So he said the reason is because it's written in Leviticus in Vayikra, chapter 4, Mechatato v'nislach lo, they said, and the priest shall atone for his sin and shall be forgiven for him. So since the Torah said it clearly, that's indication that even if he atoned for the sin, which means part of his sin, not but for all of his sin, but everything is already forgiven. So now he asks, so how you respond to the source that Rabbi Yochanan brought? וריש לקיש הכתיב על חטאתו והביא. Torah said the other one, that for the sin it shall bring. ההוא לאחר כפרה, that's applied after the atonement. ולרבי יוחנן, how Rabbi Yochanan respond to the source of ריש לקיש? נמי, ההוא כתיב בחטאתו ונסלח לו for his sin and he should be forgiven. אך מה יסכין כגון שאכל זית ומחצה ונודע לו כזית. He ate half a bag and a little half of that one, and now he realized that it's כזית, it's forbidden. וחזר ואכל חצי כזית ואחר בעלמו של שני. Now he ate another one together with the second one. מהו לתימה להצטרפו? So maybe you say that the two half of the olive bark should join together and is liable to bring an additional sin offering. Kamash Melan, the verse teaches us that in the case he is exempt because he's already atoned for the part of the transgression. So we learn to one cover both. Omar leRavina leRavashi, the it yadale kodem afrasha plige. Here we the big machloket, this dispute is between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. That it disagree with a person became aware of the second prior to the designating of animal for the first of the sin offering. This is the machloket. Mar savar yediot, the mar savar yediot mechalkot, mar savar afrashot mechalkot. One say that the knowledge makes a difference, to differentiate, and the second one said that the awareness separate. Since one became aware of his sin at two different stages, so he's liable to bring two sin offering. אבל לאחר הפרשה, but he said, however, after the second, transgression, after the designation of the animal for the first sin offering, model ריש לקיש לרבי יוחנן לחייב שתיים, ריש לקיש לרבי יוחנן, that he needs to bring two, או דילמה, or maybe you say, דהתיידע לאחר הפרשה פליגי. Maybe the machloket is only if you are aware only after the second time. ובהפליגי, and this is the machloket, the mar, which is Rabbi Yochanan hold, סבר הפרשות מחלקות. Rabbi Yochanan hold that the designation of the two, it's the separation, it's the mechalkot, they separate them, which means that he needs to bring a sin offering for each time of the shgaga, that he doesn't know at the time of the separation. Umar, which is Rish Lakish Savar, kaparot mechalkot. Rish Lakish Savar, Rish Lakish hold that the atonement, it's really what it's separated, which means that the atonement separate only after the sin offering has been sacrificed on the altar and the sinner has obtained atonement. That can be said that the sacrifice capacity to atone is spent, it cannot be atoned for the sin with which he became aware afterward. So he said, aval kodem afrasha. However, if he became aware of the second sin prior to designation of the sacrifice, modele Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish denocha velachad. Rabbi Yochanan agrees with Rish Lakish that is liable to bring only one sin offering, or dilma, or perhaps the dispute between both of them. Ben bezo machloket. Both in this case, in that case, before designation, etc. In that case, after designation, it's a machloket. So how you said, Amarle, Ravashi responded and he said, Mistabra, it appears, it looks better. Ben bezo machloket. It's more reasonable to say that the dispute in both of the cases, and in that case, the isal kadatar, that if you tell me that before the shgaga, the second one, kodem afrasha pligei, that it's only before, prior to the designation of the animals of the first sin offering, that's the machloket. Aval achar afrasha, after the second shgaga, model Rish Lakish to Rabbi Yochanan dechav shtayim. Rish Lakish agree with Rabbi Yochanan that he needs to bring two. Ademokim lakra lachar kapara. So the pasuk speak after the atonement. Lokmei lachar afrasha. Maybe it's instead of you can say that after the designation of the animal for the first sin offering, so that's the idea. But if you say that they disagree only in the case when he became aware of the second after designation, אבל קודם הפרשה מודל לרבי יוחנן לריש לקיש דנו חייב אלא אחת, and prior to designation Rabbi Yochanan agreed with Reish Lakish that he's only liable to bring one sin offering. So he said ademoke leikra. So he said that because the pasuk put in a very clear way mechatato from his sin and it's forgiven to him, and that's bikzait umechta, that's apply only to bring a sin offering with kezait and olive bark and a half, which is when he ate kezait umechta and then he wore that the kezait are kezait, and then it was with the first one lokmei kodem hafrasha, that he became aware of the sin prior to the designation. So because they didn't say it, they think that they all apply to the second time before he is separated. So Rabbi Yochanan require a separate chatat. So here you learn that both Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish have this disputation, regardless if he aware of that before Hafrasha or afterward. So now Ravina rejected, he doesn't accept this proof, and he said, "V'dilma sapuke mesap kala." Maybe those who put the Talmud together, they have a question if Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish, he said, "Ve'im tematzeh lomar kama." Maybe they perhaps they have uncertainty with regard to this matter, and they employing the style that if you wish to say, which means אם תימצא לומר קודם הפרשה פליגי בה רבי יוחנן החמוקים על הלקרא. If you wish to say that they disagree in the case where they become aware of the second sin prior to the designation, how does Rabbi Yochanan establish the verse? How? The verse is mechatato v'nislach lo, for his sin is forgiven, bikezait umechza, which is an olive bark and a half, which means if he ate kezait and mechza, and now he's aware that it was a kezait back, and then he ate another half with the helem of the first one. So we learn together both chatzai kezait. It's not enough to require him to bring a sin offering, and he only bring one that covered the 1.5 that he ate in the first helem. That's the way Rashi see it. ואם תמצא לומר לאחר הפרשה פליגי, and maybe you come to say that they only the machloket is only after that the designation Reish Lakish heichei moke lelekra belachar kapara. Then how does Reish Lakish establish the verse? He establishes the verse in a case where one become aware of the second sin after attending atonement. So basically, here the GEMARA speak about many sins together. By the way, that's Memra hold, according at least to Marsha, that it's a two different things, which is, let's first read it. Amar Ula said, Leman de Amar Asham Vadai. According to one say that define guilt offering, which means that there is every korban Asham, every guilt offering, that it's not Asham Talui, which means that you bring it from something that you're not so sure. In other words, you did it out of knowledge, you're unaware of that if you did it intentionally, it's karet, and the shogeg is chadat. So it's called asham vadai. So there are several ashamot. You see it every morning when we read before Rabbi Ishmael, we read the Brighter, we talk about different ashamot, which is the guilt offering. So it's called asham mi'ilot, that if someone derive something that belongs to the hekdesh. For example, if you have a fund or you have some property that belongs to the hekdesh, and someone unintentionally used that for his private needs. Okay? So that's one example. So he needs to bring asham meilot, an extra offering in addition to the original keren and chomesh. Asham gzelot, the second, if someone take an oath in vain for something that you need to, for example, someone was sued for loan, or something that someone gave him as a pikadon, and then he took an oath and it was a lie, and then he came back and he said that he admitted that it was a untruth statement, so it's extra offering that it's called asham gzeilot. The third category, it's called asham shifcha charufa, which means if someone have relation with the Canaanite maid that was designated for the Hebrew slave, so because of that, because it's not type of kiddushin, it's not type of any marriage since she's a Canaanite, but anyway, someone who have relation with her, he needs to bring a guilt offering. So now, Amar Ula said, Lemanda Amar Hasham Vadai Lo Bayad Yediah Batchila. He said that a definite guilt offering, a sacrifice both but one who committed a robbery, or misused a sacred object, or had relations with a designated maid servant, one does not require a prior knowledge of that he definitely seen. Meaning even when he brought this offering, he wasn't clear about it. So there is a Magen Avram with that, Achaim Aleph, that he asked why he need to say all of that. It's clear that, but later the Gemara explained an example of this type of forbidden relation, etc., what exactly involves. So I rather leave it for the following day, and now we're going just to the practical halachot. First halacha we learn today is melacha after melacha. For example, reaping draws reaping. So that's Rambam Hilchot Shgagot. So the Gemara referring here to one who reaped and ground the requisite measure of grain while unwitting with regard to Shabbat, and intentional with regard to the prohibition of labors, and then he did it again while intentional with regard to Shabbat but unintentional with regard to labors. So if the first become aware with regard to the first act of reaping and grinding, and subsequently become aware of the second, you need to bring one offering and it's enough. Now, if after performing the unwitting acts, one first became aware of the reaping he performed while intentional with regard to Shabbat and unwitting with regard to a prohibited labor, so the sacrifice that he brings for the act that reaping atones for it, and for reaping of the grinding and performed separately with the other one, which is shogeg on Shabbat. The sacrifice does not atone for the grinding he performed together with the reaping while intentional with regard to Shabbat. So the halacha ruled according to the opinion of Rava that disagree with Abaye. We also learn that if one brought a korban, a sacrifice for the first, which means if one who ate two prohibited foods in the course of one lapse of awareness, and he became aware of one of them, and he ate another prohibited food while still unaware of the second, and brought a sacrifice for the first one, he gained atonement for only for the first, the act. But if after he became aware of the third, he brought the sacrifice, that's gain atonement for the second and the third. So basically the whole idea is that he brought the sacrifice for the second, it's gain for everyone else, and that's again the Rambam dealing with Hilchot Shgagot. Now we also dealt today with the Chelev, the Notar, and Chatzai Zetim. So what is a little more practical is that if one is unwitting ate half of the olive bark of one type of prohibited food, and then ate a half of an olive bark of another type of prohibited food, doing the same lap of awareness, is exempt from the obligation of bringing a sin offering. Now, if it's a achal kezait umechza, if one ate an olive bark, a half and prohibited food, and is not aware, so again, what we discuss all the times, it's the level of awareness, which is, it's called yediot mechalkot, which is prior to awareness separate. And that's very important because that's what we said originally when we introduced the daf. And that's the Rambam, Sefer Korbanot, Hilchot Shgagot, chapter 5. He said, if one unintentionally performs two sins in one lapse of awareness, and became aware of one, and then became aware of the other, so he's liable to bring two sin offering, even though he became aware of the second prior to designating an animal for the sin offering for the first sin. So, but that's basically according to opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, who mentioned it's separate. So what we learn, beside that, it's the whole idea of yedi'ah mechaleket. If there is no clear source of not clear understanding, not clear of knowledge, prior knowledge, then you treat it differently. When it's a little bit prior knowledge, then you have to treat it different. So in other words, you have to really invest the time to know exactly, for example, if someone come before the bedding, you need to interrogate that individual on such a level to know exactly what's the level of knowledge that the person has. And only then you define what exactly is his obligation. If it's not clear, or if he brought an offering at the middle, or if it's somehow a very ambiguous statement, then you just treat it in one offering. Only you give a separation of offering when you get the feeling or you get the knowledge that he has a clarity of the actions, and then it turned to be almost mezid or mezid, and you have to treat it separately for each and every one of them.
בורכי נפשי es Hashem